Good evening, my friends, the Facebook land. As the Church of Christ here, Baxter Chris here with you, and hope you've had a very good day. A little bit late this evening running on the video, but I wanted to take a few moments to talk with you a little bit about the scriptures once again. And this evening we're going to go back to Luke, the 14th chapter, verses 1 through 4, as you see here on the board. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at some questions that Jesus asked the people of his time and different places and so forth. Sometimes it was his disciples, sometimes it was the Pharisees or the Sadducees or the leaders of whatever, and different ones. And so because the circumstance required different answers for different questions, and this is what I want to do today because we get a few questions ourselves of various kinds. And so I was trying to answer a few of these as we go along here, also to be able to strengthen your knowledge in the scriptures as well. And it does mine as well when I review these things and look at it and give a little short answer about it. So continuing on here, in Luke, the 14th chapter, in verses 1 through 4, of course, the time period is whenever Jesus was alive, walking upon the earth, and he was still under the Old Testament law, because, as we know, the law did not end. That time, the Mosaic law, that covenant, lasted up until he died upon the cross of Calvary. And then also, there was then a transition period, if you will, from the time he died upon that cross until AD 70, when the temple was destroyed and all the records and so forth. And that Jewish system, the Mosaic law, I should say, was then taken completely out of the way by the reason or planning of God. And you can make a comparison of that whenever they came from out of Egypt into the Promised Land, and they got the new law from Moses upon Mount Sinai, that there at that point they wandered for 40 years around the desert until finally there was only two left, and they then crossed over Jordan to begin a new chapter in their life, which then set that off. And so there was a transition period, and that compares to Jesus' death in AD 70, a transition period of removing one law, as he talks about in Hebrews, to fully instate another one, which now makes us under the law of Christ. But anyway, back to that, I want to read this here just a moment here. In Luke 14, verses 1 through 4 is the context, and it won't take very long here. It says, one Sabbath, when Jesus went to eat in the house of a prominent Pharisee, he was being carefully watched. Now, Jesus was always being watched. As we know, the Pharisees did not like him. The Sadducees did not like him. He was a threat to them because they thought he was trying to change everything when he really was not. He was trying to share with them and get them back to the knowledge of God and the law of God that had been given to them on Mount Sinai that they had simply gotten so far away from. And so they watched Jesus every single moment, trying to find something, some reason to say, oh, you sinned, and condemn him by the law of Moses. And they never could do that. So this is one of those incidences as well. And so he's being carefully watched. Verse 2 says, there in front of him was a man suffering from dropsy. Jesus asked the Pharisees and experts in the law, and the law of Moses. Now, this is the idea which, constituted 600 and something, I want to say 635 different laws, plus, all little other things here. So he asked them, those people that were so smart, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? Because you remember in the Old Testament, let's not mean the Old Testament, they are under the Old Testament at this time, in that law, that there was a man stoned to death for picking up sticks right after they came out of Egypt and they got the law, and he went out to get sticks on the Sabbath day to be able to cook. Well, the law was you was to get that stuff ready on the sixth day, so you didn't have to do all that, and you could give your time for worship of God, and you could still have food, but it just needed to be prepared beforehand. And there were other rules the Pharisees came up with themselves, that you couldn't travel no more than a Sabbath day's journey on the Sabbath day, which was about a mile. And they just made up their own rules, basically. And this is what Jesus was really questioning them about, was their rules and what did it actually say in the law of Moses. And so that's the question he asked. Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath day. Now, all these smart men, he's around there. And it says there, but they remained silent. So taking hold of the man, he healed him and sent him on his way. Then he asked them, if one of you has a son or an ox that falls into a well on the Sabbath day, will you not immediately pull him out? And they had nothing to say. Because, you see, they knew that was true. They knew their animals were valuable to them. If they fell into a well, they got to get him out. Number one, it ruins the water if you don't. Number two, you have a loss of a valuable animal if you don't get him out. You know, and if it's a son, particularly he does. And so what he's really trying to show is that life is more valuable. You know, the laws are there in place to guide you and to make sure, you know, that you are obedient to God. But in that, God also says, you know, that if you have a son, he told them that if you have a son that's born on the 8th day, he is to be circumcised. And so if that 8th day fell on the Sabbath day, what did they do? Well, they, you know, as we know, circumcision destroys the body. It's not a healing process. It doesn't, so it's a removal of flesh. But they would go and do that. So what is wrong if you're going to take away flesh? Why not give back wholesomeness to flesh? And what makes that wrong? And the answer is nothing. Many times a day, you know, because we're no longer under that law. Okay, the Sabbath law, Sabbath day is no longer in effect. I believe you can find that in Colossians, the 2nd or either the 3rd chapter, where he talks about, you know, let no man judge you in these things because they're no longer there. He talks about in chapter 2 how it was nailed to the cross with Christ. And so therefore that law has been taken away as far as us being under that law. Are the principles still there? Absolutely. You know, and there is a law of Christ. So we have to watch, make sure of what we do. He approaches this in another question later on. So my friends, you know, life is valuable. And Jesus says take care of that, help that. If it comes in something that's in conflict with the law, take care of life. David ate of the bread, you know, the showbread that only the priests were to eat. Take care of life. That's the point. You know, take care of life. Life is important to God. Living for God is important. But now to follow it up very closely here with the things that we are asked today, that I've heard people ask, well, you know, you're not supposed to work on Sunday. Well, there is no such law against that. You know, we work to provide our families the way our systems are set up today, that you have the opportunity, and many jobs are designed to work where you have to work. If you feel that job, and it's not a sinful job, you work on your Sundays. Can you go out in your yard and do flowers on Sunday? Of course you can. The point of Sunday being the first day of the week, he tells us that time to come together, to worship him, to be edified, to sing songs of praise, a prayer, remember him by the Lord's Supper. And, you know, that's the worship he requires of us today as a collective unit. Now, we ought to worship God every single day in our individual life because he is God. and he deserves our worship, our honor, and our praise, and we should live for him each and every day, and that is worshiping him. My friends, I hope you found this valuable. If you have any questions, please leave them below. You can instant message me on this place. I believe I have that set up. And if not, just leave a comment, and I can certainly get back in touch with you. But I'd like to also ask you to come and visit with us at the Church of Christ on the corner of Tebow Street and Riverside in Waycross, Georgia, on Sundays from 9 to 11:15. That's our Sunday school class and a worship hour. And later that evening from 5 to 6, and also on Wednesdays from 7 to 8. But if you'd like an individual class, that could be arranged as well. There's several men that would love to take your time, and even women that would love to take the time to share the Word of God with you. I hope you found value in this. If you have, my friends, please share. If you have questions, also ask them, and we will make sure you get answered. Have a good evening now.